What's going on, guys? Check back with another awesome Blu-ray purchase, and today I'm going to bring in a little bit of culture because today we're talking about newly released from the Criterion Collection, 1968's Romeo and Juliet. Um, Obviously, a little Shakespeare here, a little bit of Bard. Um, Admittedly, I'm not well versed in every single Shakespeare film adaptation. I've seen very few, among them being Laurence Olivier's Hamlet. Of course, it won Best Picture. One of the reasons why I've seen that, I've seen the film adaptation of Much Ado About Nothing, the one that had Denzel Washington, and I can't remember who else was in that. I think Kenneth Branagh and a few other people. I have seen, was it A Midsummer Night's Dream? I think that's what it was called. I think that's what was this. The one from the 1930s, I believe, with Mickey Rooney, which was fun. Um, and of course, I've seen Baz Luhrmann, Romeo plus Juliet, I guess, with Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes, which I absolutely hated. I, which is terrible to say because, well, not terrible to say because it's a bad movie. Because I really love the story of Romeo and Juliet. It's the few Shakespeare plays I've seen or read. This is the one that I've always really enjoyed, and I think probably because to me, for someone you obviously you read Shakespeare in junior high, high school, whatever the case may be, and the way it's written, it takes a lot of thought to process and understand what's being said because of the way the language is used. But for some reason, Romeo and Juliet, even at the young age, it made sense to me what they were. I think I don't say I could relate to it, but I understood more than any other piece of Shakespeare I'd read at that point. And so I've always, and I think probably it's one of the reasons why I gravitated so much to it because I understood it. um, and of course, the story has been at it. It's maybe his most famous play. At least my thinking it probably. And there's obviously bigger ones. This is the one I think that everyone mentions as Romeo and Juliet. Um, you know, Whenever people talk about romance, star-crossed lovers, Romeo and Juliet, West Side Story, which is one of my favorite musicals, is basically Romeo and Juliet set in New York. And you replace the Capulets and the Montagues with the Sharks and the Jets. That's the same thing. So this story has been adapted. It's timeless, and it's just a beautiful tragic love story. I guess you could say this is really the birth of the tragic love story that most people enjoy. This is probably the most famous adaptation of Romeo and Juliet from 1968. It stars Olivia Hussey and I can't remember the actor's name, and if I can read it here. And I do apologize. I should have all this right on hand, right? Leonard Whiting. I can't remember exactly how to pronounce that, but like I said, this is the probably most famous adaptation of the film. This is actually one I saw in high school. They showed us, and it was nominated for Best Picture in 1968. And to this point, from what I've read, this is the last Shakespeare adaptation to be nominated for Best Picture. So that was 1968, and we're not counting Shakespeare in Love. No, that's not the same thing. That's not an adaptation of a Shakespeare play. Although they use Romeo and Juliet as the basis of that film, it's not the same thing. And I think it's also, from what I read, I don't know if it still is now, at least up to this point when it came out, it was the highest grossing Shakespeare adaptation film. So, this is really, I think this is the standard bearer of any Romeo and Juliet adaptation ever. And, everything about this is just really good. And one of the things that makes it so unique, I guess, among most adaptations is that the leads are actually the age that the characters are intended to be in Shakespeare's play. Olivia Hussey at the time, I think she was 15 going on 16. William, I said William, right? It was 17. These were kids. Which, that being said, that kind of opens up a whole I don't know if it's a controversial point, but one of the things, I guess, unrightfully so, well, I say rightfully so, but obviously so, that its film is really known for is because there is nudity from these two lead actors. Very brief. Basically, the most shot you get is actually of Williams, but it really focused. Franco Zeffirelli, the director, just really had the shot where they wake up in bed after a night of lovemaking, and he's just Romeo just laying her butt out in the hallway. And he gets up, and this whole thing's really focused on the butt. Now Juliet, of course, Olivia Hussey, who was 15 at the time, she does have a topless scene, but it's very, very, because she's covered up, most time in that bed scene until she rolls over to get out of bed, and it's very brief, just very brief. It's not even there for barely a second. I mean, unless you're gonna go time it, I don't know. But that is a sticking point. And again, this was made in, I want to say, probably filmed in Italy, so their ages of consent were a little bit different as opposed to other countries. But I know that's been a big sticking point for years for a lot of people. To the point, I mean, over the years, both actors defended this. It's not a big deal. It's not hastily, which is interesting. How much they defended it and said they were fine with it over all these years. And as of this year, 2023, in January, so just like a month ago, they actually filed a lawsuit against Paramount Pictures, citing I think child abuse and other stuff like that in regards to that scene, saying that they were just mistreated. It's a big thing I don't think they can go into, but I find it kind of strange that defending it all these years, and then this is 1968, and then just now, well, I gotta watch myself now. Because you see this kind of thing coming out a lot, especially in Hollywood, the repercussions of actions, which you didn't know about years later coming up to resurface. So that could be the case. Who's to say? Obviously none of us were there. I certainly wasn't, not in 1968. I don't know what they're going through. But it's this kind of, I guess, the irony maybe in that, the Criterion gets a hold of the release. They put out this edition on Blu-ray. This just came out a week or two ago. And then this lawsuit thing happens just a month, January, February this year. So timing is everything. I don't know. but again, I just find that a little ironic, a little fascinating. But all that being said, back to the film at hand. A lot of people will focus on that aspect when they really should, because there is so much to this movie. This adaptation is wonderful, from the costume design, the cinematography, the acting is brilliant. We're talking the leads who are, a 15 and 17-year-old have to carry basically the heart of this film, and they do such an excellent job with the dialogue, which, anyone who's read or tried to, recite Shakespeare knows it ain't easy. But it flows, and it's so, I don't know, it's encapsulating. It grips you. And again, what's the beauty of seeing this on film? That everything about it just grabs your attention, and you are drawn to the story. The performances are fantastic. The atmosphere, the costumes, the set decoration, everything about it just pulls you in that whole story, and it's just a fun watch. And again, I'm not as well versed in the play. Obviously, I know I've read it, but as far as a detailed issues, I can tell you, I believe a lot of stuff is probably trimmed down or cut out that was in the play, as to put into a 2-hour film. But the movie, it just flows. It moves right along really fast. Never at one point, like I said, I just rewatched it after I got this. And never at one point did I feel like it drug on, or it's like, okay, it's a little slow. It was just, it moved at a great pace. I mean, I was invested with the characters. The dialogue was, it wasn't hard to, you got what they meant. And the intent was all there. You understood it, which is, again, for anyone who's not well versed in Shakespeare, that's the biggest thing to get. Do you understand what they're saying, what they're implying? I think it really helps when it's harder to read it on a page and know what's meant, but when you get to see it on film, or even act out on stage, it makes more sense because you can see what they're implying. You can see the actions, so that really helps. And like I said, the cast is helped by, or the leads are helped by such a great supporting cast. The was it nursemaid, I think, or the Juliet's nursemaid. I can't remember her name, but she was a fantastic. She was like a joy to watch every time she was on screen. Between her and the friar, who of course the aide to Romeo, and the nursemaid being the aide to Juliet. These two characters are really great in the film. I mean, they perform their roles really well. They're both very fun to watch during the whole time. Every time they're on screen, especially the nursemaid, she basically almost steals almost every scene she's in. Actually, probably every scene she's in. She's so good, and she's having a fun time. Her performance is just so. It's big, but not too big. It's just the right amount of big, and it's a lot of fun to watch. Also, playing Tybalt in this, who is Juliet's cousin, of course, the evil Tybalt, which I did not realize is a very young Michael York. For those of you who don't know Michael York, you will recognize him as the character Basil Exposition from the Austin Powers series, which I was like, well, wow, I didn't even realize he looks so young. He's doing a great role as Tybalt. But if you've never seen this film and you enjoy the story of Romeo and Juliet, you owe it to yourself to pick this up and check it out. This is, again, probably the best adaptation of this play on film to date. So, again, it's released for Criterion Collection. Here's the cover. You see the two leads there. I got a reflection. I do apologize. Here's your back. Special feature wise on here, you get, I think it was a trailer. Not too much. What's interesting is you've got two sets of interviews. One interview with the leads, with Olivia Hussey and Leonard Winning. I called him William earlier. I do apologize. Again, I didn't remember his name as much as Olivia Hussey. And this is like during promotional press for the film, so it's like probably around 1968, 69 when these interviews are very young, and it's a really actually awkward and uncomfortable kind of interview, mainly because they're young, and the interviewer is just kind of throwing these questions out there, just kind of, I don't know, hard questions for teens about their career, what they plan for their career, their thoughts on this, trying to get really deep. And I think you can tell the actors themselves feel really uncomfortable. And I guess it's an infamous interview in the sense that Olivia Hussey, who at the time was 15, in it, at one point she is shown lighting up a cigarette, and they're drinking, I guess, mimosas or something, some kind of alcohol beverage. But it's just and then the interviewer brings out the fact, I see her smoking a cigarette. How's your brother feel about that? And blah blah blah. Fast forward to the other interview on there, which takes place, I believe it's it's at a 2016 screening of the film. And it's a Q&A on stage with Leonard and Olivia, and they actually talk about that interview. And she mentioned they've been on press tours with this film for a while, and they were telling her she needed to really be the hair down. She really had to be in the Juliet mode for this film. And after a while, I guess she just kind of, rebelling. 15-year-old going to rebel. She pulled her hair back. She's going to light up a cigarette, drink. She's just done. So that's the purpose or the story behind that interview. But it's interesting again. The early interview when they're kids, early preteens. Is again because it's awkward. It's a little clunky. You can tell they're really uncomfortable with the questioning. To 2016 when they're obviously well, in their adult years, and they're more at ease. They're relaxed. They're talking about stories of the film. They're answering questions. It's a night and day kind of contrast of interviews. What's also interesting is you can tell Olivia Hussey's a woman who talks with her hands a lot, much like myself, because they're holding microphones in these interviews. And as she's talking, your hands are just going all over the place, so you lose half of what she's saying. I hate to be the audience and there, because she would talk and then her hands would go moving, the microphone would be over here or whatever, and so she'd be cutting in and out on her dialogue a lot. And I don't know if the moderator even thought to point it out to her or not, but I thought that was kind of humorous. Also on the special features, there is what is it? An excerpt from a documentary on Franco Zeffirelli, who again the director, and about him. It's just a segment about this film, so it only lasts probably about 10 or 15 minutes, and that's really all there is in the way of extras for the film. So let's open this up, and let's see. Here's your disc. Is that upside down? Upside down. There's the disc. Very passionate. And you've got, let's see if I can, it's kind of hard to see, it's a little dark, but you've got this nice little image here, the two of them. And get that back in there. And much like any other Criterion collection, you've got a nice little fold out of, images from the film, and you've got these great essays on it. So there's all your supplemental information right in there. And Criterion, of course, is great for these kind of I don't call them booklets, liner notes, whatever you want to call them. I've not had a chance to read that yet, but I will try and check it out as soon as I can. But so there it is, 1968's Romeo and Juliet. Highly recommend you check this out. If you've enjoyed Shakespeare, if you love the story of Romeo and Juliet, you've not seen this film, check it out. You will not be disappointed. It is and throw out, don't even worry about the nudities are really a non-issue. I mean, other facts, I guess, they're underage. That's the big issue. True, but it's, how do you defend that? I'm not trying to defend it. I'm just saying, don't let it deter you from the rest of the film, because there's so much good in this film, besides just that little few minutes that are meaningless in the grand scheme of the film. Honestly, why Zeffirelli felt he needed to put that in there, I don't know. I'm sure it's an Italian thing. It's artistic. They don't look at nudity the same way as we do here in the States. And again, age of consent, a different thing. At least for Leonard, I do think that Olivia had at least from what's been said, that there's some kind of consent for him to have any sense, because she was 15. Where Leonard, I think the age of consent was 17 in Italy at the time. So we're talking like 1960s, 67. So don't know, it wasn't there. But again, that's such a footnote in what this movie really is, how good this movie really is. So don't let that deter you or take anything away from what a good movie this is. I highly recommend you check it out. From Criterion Collection, 1968's Romeo and Juliet. So, as always, if you enjoy this, click thumbs up, share, subscribe. Leave me a comment below. Let me know if you enjoy Romeo and Juliet. If you've got a favorite Shakespeare play, if you even like Shakespeare at all. If your thoughts. I'd like to hear them, because I don't think this movie gets talked about enough. Obviously, this is way back, but it's still being shown. At least I'm assuming it may not be now in our today's climate. But I know when I was in high school, this was the version we saw in my English class in high school. English class. And Again, I think that stuck with me a lot. So I be interested to see if anybody I'm assuming they still teach Shakespeare in schools now. It's been a while. But let me know your thoughts. Or as always, just say hi. I'll always take hi. So until next time, this is Chuck saying I will see you on the other side.